Hello, I'm Madison Shakespeare, a very proud Gadigal saltwater woman from the east coast of Australia. I'd like to acknowledge all Indigenous peoples at this Geo-Indigenous Alliance Summit. I pay my respects to you, your elders, past and present, and indeed honour your continued custodianship of country. Today I'd like to yarn with you about a strategic way forward, one that I see as essential for Indigenous peoples to advance Indigenous data sovereignty. Implicit in our status as sovereign First Nations peoples are fundamental human rights to govern our knowledges, practices, and relationships with country. Yet, with the exponential growth of Earth observational data, we are at increasing risk of losing control over our place-based knowledges, customs, and practices, and even of having our custodial law undermined. For Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in Australia, knowledge, stories, and data have been governed since time immemorial. These practices are foundational to cultural survival and continuity. Indigenous data sovereignty affirms that our communities have the right to govern data about our peoples, our places, and our natural resources, as well as the ways we understand our connectedness to country. This sovereignty safeguards our cultures, protects our knowledges, and upholds self-determination. When Indigenous data sovereignty is undermined, profound cultural and spiritual conundrums arise. The potential benefits of Earth observation EO data are undeniable. Satellite and remote sensing technologies generate powerful geospatial information that can offer insight and even foresight to support the custodianship of country and care of Mother Earth. But the question for us is not simply what EO can observe, it is who governs the data it produces. For Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, knowledge of country has always been governed through our laws, responsibilities, and custodial relationships. Indigenous data sovereignty is therefore critical in the context of Earth observation. It affirms the rights of Indigenous peoples to control data about our lands, waters, communities, and natural resources. Without Indigenous governance, EO data risks reproducing extractive knowledge systems that overlook cultural authority and relational obligations to country. With Indigenous data sovereignty, however, these technologies can instead support cultural continuity, protect knowledge, and strengthen self-determination. In 2024, Australia introduced a national governance framework for the collection and management of Indigenous data. While this represents an important step forward, the framework applies only to data held by the Australian government and its agencies. Significant questions remain. Who within Indigenous communities is aware of this framework? Who ensures its implementation? Who oversees compliance? And how are breaches addressed? And importantly, will the benefits for Indigenous communities be realised in the short, medium, or the long term, if realised at all? Even more concerning, though, is what sits beyond the framework's reach. Vast amounts of data about country, environment, and our peoples are collected by private companies, corporations, and international actors. These data sets often exist entirely outside Indigenous governance and control. This raises a fundamental challenge. How can Indigenous data sovereignty be realised when so much data about country and our communities is generated beyond our authority? These are not small questions. They are profound cultural and spiritual conundrums. Around the world on a daily basis, information is being collected, recorded, and often kept about natural environments over which Indigenous peoples still hold custodianship. This is a satellite image of Uluru taken on a specific date and time, and in this case we know when it was captured and that it is currently held within a NASA repository. Usually, however, this level of detail is not available to us. More often, we do not know when, by whom, or where images of our country are being taken and stored. This is extremely concerning for many reasons. Sitting on country, I had the opportunity to yarn with a number of custodians who, in their wisdom, and in seeking to keep me safe at Uluru, advised me of areas I should not enter for a range of cultural and spiritually based reasons. areas I should not see. You can see the tensions that arise when high-definition satellite images can capture every aspect of sacred sites, places that have been protected for over 65,000 years and that have ensured the continuity and flourishing of spiritual practices. Suddenly exposed by Earth observation technologies. This is a huge conundrum, and more often than not, these images are taken and kept without any collaboration or consultation with traditional custodians. So why is this so bad? When Earth observation images are taken and kept without consent or consultation, they become a form of surveillance and data extraction over country. Sacred sites and spiritually significant landscapes are suddenly exposed to whoever has access, undermining custodial law and eroding the authority of custodians to control who sees, knows, and uses these places. For Indigenous peoples, looking at country is never neutral. It is always relational and responsibility laden. When others record and hold images without our authority, observation is detached from accountability, and country becomes a monitored surface rather than a living community. This is not just concerning, it is actively dangerous for our cultural survival, spiritual integrity, and data and place sovereignty. I think it's critical to question what Earth observation actually means. What does Earth itself mean, and what exactly are we observing? When Earth observation is viewed through a Western lens, country is often reduced to a measurable surface, objective data, territory, or resource. Western scientific traditions frequently claim neutrality through objectivity, yet these claims are embedded in Western knowledge practices that often conflict with Indigenous ways of knowing, doing, and being. A significant barrier emerges when Earth observation is framed only as observing from above, a distant technical gaze that separates observation from relationship with the natural environment, our relationship with Mother Earth. For Indigenous peoples, country is not simply something to observe. It is something we are in relationship with, and those relationships are governed by custodial law and relational accountability. In this yarn with you today, I propose that other technologies can be layered alongside the Earth observation data that is already constantly being collected about the environments over which we hold custodianship. One such approach is geo-emotive mapping. Geo-emotive mapping can function as a relational countervision to extractive Earth observation. It creates a knowing space where custodians can record and account for how we feel when country is well, or when country is sick, because when country is sick, we too are sick. Our knowledge comes through feeling, through relationship, and through responsibility. Geo-emotive mapping allows us to account for changes in country through changes in ourselves, through our experiences of wellness or imbalance. By mapping emotion, we assert our own knowledge systems and privilege our ways of knowing as the custodial lens through which to value and understand country, challenging Western commodification and abstract objectivity. These responses are not anecdotal, they are evidence of custodianship, of connectedness. They place emotion, responsibility, and relationship into motion as forms of place-based data. These data forms are critical and valuable. They assert our sovereign rights and responsibilities as custodians of country under Indigenous data sovereignty frameworks and relational accountability. In doing so, geo-emotive mapping transforms the idea of objectivity into relational accountability, where knowledge is answerable to country and community, not to abstract technical standards. It becomes a form of relational resistance that grounds Earth observation within custodial law, where Mother Earth is understood as community, not commodity. To make this concrete, here's an example from my connected custodianship platform in the Mapimo app. This shows how our connections to country are expressed through emotional responses to events that are affecting country's well-being. Harmful algal blooms continue to devastate South Australia's marine ecosystems, and connected custodianship maps custodians' emotions, sadness, worry, distress, anger, frustration across multiple sites, multiple beaches in South Australia, revealing both the frequency and scale of marine life loss on country. Traditional custodianship recognises country as a sentient participant. It communicates through weather patterns, river flows, and animal behaviours. Geo-emotive mapping honours this communication by recording human responses as meaningful data. Grief when country is scared, joy at renewal, concern and worry at disruption. By foregrounding connectedness as the missing relational dimension, artificial intelligence, when governed by Indigenous protocol, can integrate Earth observation data such as thermal anomalies, erosion patterns and biodiversity shifts with geo-emotive signals, operationalising custodial law and enabling care for country as a living, sentient community. Looking at another example from my connected custodianship platform highlights why privileging Indigenous relational worldviews is critical. Conventional Earth observation relies on extractive metrics, for instance, a normalised difference vegetation index or land cover change. This reduces country to numerical indicators. Custodial law reads the same landscape relationally. Through my connected custodianship platform, Geo-emotive signals express the lived relationships with country. This is a strength-based approach that reflects active custodial care. In doing so, it also asserts our sovereign rights as custodians to care for country according to our unique, specific, place-based laws, practices, and ensures that we're able to realise our ongoing responsibilities. When combined with Earth observation data, artificial intelligence can begin to recognise these patterns, linking environmental signals with custodian knowledge and prioritising indicators grounded in custodianship and relational responsibility to country. Thank you for this humbling opportunity to yarn across our sacred planet. The ability to connect with Indigenous custodians near and far is critical, because together we must stand in solidarity, not just caring for our own unique and precious natural environments, but together we must stand and defend, advocate for and protect Mother Earth and all of her life forms. From the rivers and the forests to the stars above and our galaxies beyond. I thank you.